This is a follow-up on the previous video I posted on how to make a text element unload the characters in a typewriter fashion, like it's typing across the screen. And as you can see, it goes very fast because it's completely based on the update function, which is tied to your frame rate. So it's going to unload however many characters as frames per second. So if there's 50 frames per second, it's going to unload 50 characters per second, which is very fast. As you can see, it flew through. So if you want greater control over how the speed goes, you'll need to use coroutines. And all this stuff we did from the first time isn't going to be used here. The only thing we're going to reuse are the variables that we already declared, and add one more. So if you didn't watch the last video, you should. But if you didn't, we're just going to do a quick rundown. Public text, displayed text is the text that you're actually seeing on screen. The input text is the text that you want to feed in, but it doesn't have any bold, italics, colors on it. And then the italic text contains this text, the input text, but with all the effects on it. Any colors you want to add, any italicization, bold, italicization might not be a word, I just made it up, I think. And then string, this is what we use to continually output and update this text you see. This is the integer we use to index the character array. This is to see if we're done running through our functions, and this is to see that we change from the input text to the finalized and effect text with the effects on it. So first off, we're going to highlight this, Command KC to comment this all out because we don't use this at all. And we don't have to comment this out. We're just not going to use it. So we're going to begin with a private void begin typewrite. And this is going to take in a string, call it text, and then we are going to say we're going to do the exact same thing here, so we can just copy and paste if we want, but I'm going to type it because I'm cool. Characters equals text dot char array. So this stores our text as individual characters in the array, which is what we want, so we can index properly. Now, we're not going to put anything else in here because we're not going to keep calling this function. We're going to call this function one time and then call a coroutine multiple times. So we're going to need a private enumerator. We'll call this type, and it'll take in a character array, and I'll call it chars, and I'll take in a float, and we'll call that chars per sec. This float is going to determine how many characters per second are fed in to the screen. And we're going to actually create a public float chars per sec. This is going to be used twice. Chars per sec, and we'll set it equal to 10 to begin with. We want to make it public and a float. It needs to be a float because rounding stuff will mess up the inputs if it's an integer. We want to have it public because then we can just go into the inspector and mess around with it, change it to 50, 100, 10, 3, whatever. You can even make it like 0.5, so it takes 2 seconds every time. 0.5 characters per second, 2 seconds per character. Same thing. So now our enumerator is going to look similar to this original typewrite function. We're going to start with our index increase I++, and then we're going to say our output string is equal to our output string plus our characters and our index to string, because we like to do to string, just make it nice. And this is essentially like output string plus equals, but that doesn't work on a non-number entry, so you can't do output text plus equals chars because it's not a number. Okay, so then we're going to say our displayed text dot text is equal to our output string, because we're going to, instead of returning it and calling it in here, we're going to do this a little differently. So if our index or I is chars dot length -1, meaning the very last character array, we're going to say we're done, because we have gone to the very last of our characters, so we don't have anything left to do. But if it isn't done, we're going to want to start a coroutine, and we're going to start this coroutine we're writing right now. We're starting coroutine type. We're defining the function within itself. Crazy. So we're going to re-put in our character array from before, and our float chars per sec is our one that came in, is going to take in the exact same one. The exact same character array, the exact same characters per second as you did the first time. So it's not going to change midway. Now, we see we have an error because it doesn't return anything. It's because we need to put in a wait for seconds to see where we want to update, or where we want to wait before we run this type again. So we're going to yield return a new wait for seconds, and this is going to be 1 over characters per second, because if you want 10 characters per second, that means each character takes 0.1 seconds, so you have to wait 0.1 seconds in between each character. So that's why we do the inverse, 1 over characters per second. And now this function is set. So begin typewrite. Now we're just going to start a coroutine type and input our characters array, which we just defined as the input text to character array, and then put in our float characters per second, and this one takes in the actual float from way up here, and then it just trickles down into every facet in here. So now we need some stuff in update. If done, if not changed, it's a similar structure here. If it's done, and this, if it's not done, display text equals typewrite, da da da. We don't use that because the coroutine is going to regulate itself when it needs to keep revolving and looping, and when it needs to just stop. So if it's done, and if it's not changed yet, we're going to say display text dot text is equal to italic text dot text, just like before, and then changed equals true, so it doesn't run that over and over and reduce our performance. Now, the only thing left to do is to call it for the first time, because in here, there's no calling it per frame. It needs to start somewhere. So that's why we're gonna say private void awake, or you could do start function, it doesn't matter, begin typewrite, and we're gonna feed it in our input text. Input text dot text, and then we will call it good. So now, if we go to our typer, which is our controller for this, we have this characters per second field, and you can, if you remember, I think it's 50 frames per second right now. If you just use the update function, that looks pretty similar to what we had before. Now, let's just turn it way down, 2 characters per second, so you can really see how you can control this. And you can see it's going very slow, 2 characters per second slow, in fact. And so this way, you could even say we do 0.5. It should take 2 seconds per character. And the way we set it up is it updates and then waits. So if you wanted, see if the A came out immediately, if you wanted that to be like, you wanted to wait for the A even, you would put this down either right here or after this line. It has to be before this line. And it has to be before this line and after this line. So it can either be right here or right here. and that way it won't put the first letter until after the first weight. So thanks for watching.